So our first look at Borderlands 4 has just premiered at the Game Awards, and it reveals so much new information about the story, the characters, and overall what we can expect going into this new entry. So first things first, let me give you some new details just released that add context to this whole trailer. Firstly, we learned the name of the planet Lilith crashed the moon into, and that's Kairos. Another thing we know is that in between the impact and the events of the trailer / game itself is that years have passed. There's another time skip that's going to be happening. Just like Borderlands 2 to 3 had a 7-year time skip, 3 to 4 is also going to have one. We don't know how long it is just yet, but it is confirmed to have been multiple years. Anyway, going into the trailer, it opens up kind of where our first sneak peek ended, with that mysterious character picking up the psycho mask that came crashing down. And from the looks of it, it appears the person who found it isn't an alien or Iridian Guardian, at least visually, but rather this new character we get to see named Callus. And the trailer opens up with her forcibly putting psycho masks on these people, effectively forming what appears to be her own controllable army. And the interesting thing about them is that they don't appear to be traditional psychos, but rather made into the likeness of them. I don't have any evidence or statements to back this up, but from everything we've seen, it seems like the planet of Kairos is one of technology, meaning the people and everyone on it, for the most part, are mechanical. And that would make sense because the Iridians themselves were organic creatures, but everything they've made, from the Guardians to the Vault monsters, are designs of their creation. So if this is a secret Iridian planet, then it would make sense that it's technologically driven. But despite my own presumptions, despite being a secret planet hidden away from the rest of the galaxy, it's not as peaceful as I would have expected, because these psychos led by Callus are a group known as the Rippers, and they are at conflict with another antagonistic force known as the Order, and they are led by the Timekeeper. If you follow the lore, then that is a name that you should recognize, and I've brought it up time and time again. But for a refresher, it is an entity that Nereid warned us about in her writings in Borderlands 3, but never encountered.
There are countless other wonders or terrors they hid across the stars before my time. For every grave ward, traveler, or timekeeper, there are surely a dozen more slumbering in forgotten vaults.
And so based on the articles that have come out, the Timekeeper is the main antagonistic force in this game. He is described as a ruthless dictator who dominates the masses from on high. From the sounds of it, he seeks to create his own perfect order, hence the name of his army, the Order. Very in line, very organized, and you could see how psychos and bandits would ruin that clean design he's striving for. Now, the interesting thing about this Timekeeper is how he's not in a vault. Now, granted, Nereid doesn't say they created the Timekeeper, nor that they locked him away. Rather, describes him amongst the wonders / terrors they hid away. So it could be he was never in a vault to begin with. The line between what the Iridians created and what they found and locked away is kinda hard to discern because they just labeled everything based on what they did. They created the Warrior to protect Pandora, but the Destroyer already existed and they named it that because it was destroying things. So it can be a little hard to tell if it's a weapon or a prisoner. So if he was created to serve a purpose for the Iridians, then it's like, well, what the hell was he doing this entire time? It could be, as his name would suggest, that he's trying to maintain the timeline, which usually meant getting in the way of our main characters. But since sirens could not be controlled, after Lilith phased Elpis, the course of history was shattered and now he's upset and making moves. But then again, it could be that he has no connection whatsoever to the Guardians wanting to protect the future. He could just be a dangerous individual who got out. The difference is that the Iridian's creations can be controlled after being released, but a prisoner is just a threat upon being free. But let's go back to the Rippers for a second and how they formed, because from a visual storytelling perspective, I get the idea that Callus found the mask when they all came raining down, and she used them as inspiration to create her own psycho-robotic army. So it could be that they aren't actually psychos, but like the Iridians had done with the Guardians, made them in the likeness of them. The only hangup I have with this idea is how they look so accurate. How do they know what the psychos physically looked like? There's plenty of new robotic designs seen amongst the Horde, but simultaneously, plenty of returning designs as well. There are psychos on Elpis, but how would they get from the moon to the planet without dying? I don't know. Also, not all of them look robotic. Like this big guy in the background, he ain't even wearing a mask, so where did he come from? You can go down one of two thought processes with this. One, the Timekeeper has always been out and doing his own thing, creating his perfect order. Or two, and this is the one I'm leaning towards, he was released relatively recently. Personally, I lean towards the latter because knowing the Rippers are a new faction, the Order has a surprisingly equal-sized army for what should be millennia of advancement. So they should be leagues above a psycho faction, unless they were both created relatively recently. So if both of these factions were formed relatively recently, then it must have been a recent event to have spurred this on. Hence Lilith and the time skip we're getting after the crash. Obviously it's too early to say, but we can speculate. It could be that Callus wasn't always the Queen of the Rippers, but was originally the Queen of Kairos. And after Lilith crashed into the planet, the Timekeeper's escape from the vault and hostile takeover of the planet has led her to scavenge and embrace chaos. And the Rippers are actually a friendly faction in the game. Because there's even this one moment in the trailer when they all stop to look at Elpis, and I originally interpreted this as the moment Elpis broke through the barrier. Because of course everyone would see that happening and look at it. But that can't be true. All of the psychos are already on the planet, so they're looking up at the moon for a different reason. I'm expecting Lilith to become flying down like an absolute badass, but that's just me. Just based on all of the descriptions we're getting for this game, the Timekeeper is the antagonist. He's the authoritarian and the foe that must be stopped. Callus is just described as scary. Usually the way these stories go with these type of antagonists in science fiction is that they inevitably come to the realization that order is impossible, so everyone either has to die or be stripped of their emotions to live in everlasting apathy. It's never a good solution. And even the name Rippers sounds like it was created in response against the Timekeeper and the Order specifically. So personally, as it stands right now, I think Callus may be a good guy. Now, I have held off on talking about the potential of time travel because we just don't know if that's what he does. And unlike the vault monsters the Iridians created, he plays a vastly different role depending on what he is. If the Timekeeper is a creation of the Iridians, then someone is controlling him. Like Jack with the Destroyer, the only difference is we stopped him before he was able to do anything with it. However, if he was a prisoner who just got out, well then he can't be controlled, and it's hard to say how we as the protagonists can use his power, as many suspect for time travel. He is very unlikely to cooperate if he is just a villain. Then there is this final shot of the Timekeeper activating a vault, which is very strange because this is not a normal vault. The normal vaults are made of stone and iridium, and the one he's activating is very mechanical and artificial looking. So maybe this is one that he made, maybe for his timekeeping power, or for endless other possibilities. I do want to leave off this initial story and lore segment on the fact that one of the strangest things about him from my perspective is just how human he looks. I mean, he's got skin, 5 fingers, he's proportionate all around. He's wearing a suit and a belt, for God's sake. I can't quite get a read on what to expect from the planet of Kairos. Initially, I would have expected it to be very tranquil and alien-like, but as we're getting all of these glimpses, it looks like a city and the type of stuff you'd find on any other planet, not one that's been hidden away from the universe for who knows how long. But moving on to the rest of the trailer, we then get a look at our 4 new Vault Hunters. It's not a true to form reveal, we still don't know any of their names or what they do. It's pretty par for the course in terms of Borderlands trailers to initially just give them a shot of them walking, revealing very little details about their abilities. From the looks of things, the guy on the far left appears to be the Zane Zero type character, big on technology and bladed weapons. The Viking guy, befittingly, has 2 elemental axes he throws. But that's about as much of the abilities as we get to see in this trailer. But obviously the topic of interest is with the new Siren, who's got a very cool look to her in my opinion. It's almost hard to tell she's the new Siren because her tattoos aren't blue. They're a pinkish red, which is entirely unique up until this point. Every other Siren has had blue tattoos, so why hers are a different color is something to think about. Another thing to think about are her powers, because as it stands right now, we are looking at the inheritor of either Tyrene's leeching ability or Commandant Steele's mystery ability that we never learned. So it's going to be very obvious very fast whose power she inherited once we get an official character reveal trailer. I would personally lean towards Tyrene's because we see these canisters on her arm as part of her design, and it's very easy to imagine how she could leech some energy and store that for later use. And there's even a shot where she's firing her gun and her tattoos are glowing, which only happens when you're using your Siren ability. So did she leech energy, store it, and is now redirecting it back into her gun for more firepower? Possible. Could she have just activated it on a character off screen and that's why she's glowing? Also very possible. Time will tell, but I do like her look. Continuing on the topic of characters, there's plenty of new ones that get teased. This woman is a literal goddess incarnate, but there are returning ones alike as we get a look at time-skipped Zane. I do like that his Digiclone holds his original design. I think that is a neat touch. We also get a look at Claptrap, but of course everyone expected him to return. I'm sure there are going to be plenty of other returning characters we'll see in the coming months as new trailers get released. But that is the Borderlands 4 official first look. There was definitely a lot more stuff in there than I initially thought when I first watched it, but what do you guys think about it? Does it look good, bad? What are your thoughts on the Rippers and the Timekeeper, the new planet, the new Vault Hunters? Any and all thoughts and theories, leave them down in the comments below and subscribe for more upcoming Borderlands 4 news and lore videos. And until next time, I'll see you in the next video.